In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate measures of location. We have grouped and ungrouped data. In this video, I'm going to show you the measurements for grouped data. The following are the equations we're going to be using. So first we have the mean, which is given by the sum of the frequency multiplied by the midpoint divided by the sample size n. Then this is the equation of the median. So in this equation, this shows the lower limit of the median interval. C is the class width, n is the sample size, and then this is the cumulative frequency of the interval before the median interval, the frequency of the median interval. I'm going to show you and explain the steps that you should follow when you're calculating the median. Then the third measurement is the mode. So remember that the mode is the most occurring outcome. So how you locate the mode is by looking at the interval with the highest frequency. Here, this is the lower limit of the modal interval. C is the class width. Fm is the frequency of the modal interval. Fm minus 1 is the frequency of the interval before the modal interval. Then Fm plus 1 is the frequency of the interval after the modal interval. So this is similar to this one, and this is similar to this. And then we're going to the non-central location measure, and we're going to be looking at the first quartile. So the first quartile, as you know, it separates the lower 25th percentile and the upper 75th percentile. Right, so how you interpret the first quartile is that it shows you that 25% of the data is less than or equal to the first quartile, and the rest 75% is higher than it. In this equation, you have, this is the lower limit of the quartile interval. C is the class width, similar as what we've seen on the median and the mode. Then F is the cumulative frequency of the interval before, and FQ1 is the frequency of the quartile interval. Again, I'm going to show you the steps that you have to follow when you're calculating the first quartile. Then we have the third quartile. On the third quartile, again, you have to find the position, and after this is the lower limit of that interval. C is the class width. So here we use 3/4n because remember the third quartile is the 75th percentile, and 3/4 is 0.75, right? That is why it's 3/4n. And then this is the cumulative frequency of the interval before, and this is the frequency of the interval. Now, as you saw in terms of the first quartile and the third quartile, on the third quartile we use 3/4 here. Why? Because that is 75th percentile. 3/4 is 0.75. And then on the first quartile, we use n/4, which is 0.25. Right, because this is the 25th percentile. So this is similar to saying 0.25n. And then here the median, remember the median is the middlemost number, which is 50%, right? So it's similar to writing this as 0.5n. Now we can see the pattern that for the 5th percentile, which is known as the median, it's 0.5n. Then for the first quartile, which is known as which is also the 25th percentile, it's 0.25n. And lastly, for the third quartile, this is the 75th percentile. As you see, it's 3/4n, which can be written as 0.75n. Now the pattern is that for each and every percentile in this equation, you substitute by the percentage next to n, right? So that takes us to the percentile, which we can use for any sort of percentile they can give you. It can be the 80th, the 63rd. This equation is similar to the ones that we've been doing. After finding the interval of the percentile, this is the lower limit of that percentile. C is the class width. What could change is this P over 100. Let's say they want the 80th percentile, then this is going to be 0.8. Let's say they want the 90th percentile, this would be 0.9 or 90 over 100. Okay, and then this is the cumulative frequency of the interval before that interval, the percentile interval, and this would be the frequency of the percentile interval. Then the next measurement we have is the variance. So the variance is given by the sum of frequency times xi squared minus n multiplied by the mean square divided by n minus 1. Now on this equation there are possible mistakes. This is the variance. So please note that this is the sum of fi xi squared. It's not the sum of fi xi squared. So this is not what it is. And again, as you see, because we have the mean here, before you calculate the variance, you're gonna need the mean. And then n minus 1, you know n is the sample size and you just subtract 1. So out of the variance, you can get the standard deviation. The standard deviation is the square root of the variance. Then the next measurement is the coefficient of variation. The coefficient of variation is the standard deviation divided by the mean multiplied by 100. So usually when they ask you for the coefficient of variation, you have to carry on with the answers you got before. Otherwise, it shows that you're confused and you would lose marks. Okay, so here are the questions that you're going to be using to practice. Please just pause to take the questions. The first questions want the mean, median, and mode, and the interpretation. The second one wants you to comment on the skewness. Then the third, the standard deviation. Then fourth, determine the upper and the lower quartile and interpret your answer. And the fifth one, determine the 80th percentile value and interpret. Okay, so these are the common examination questions. Let's go with the data that we've been given. Okay, so the first question wants us to calculate the mean. We saw that in order for you to get the mean, the equation is given by the sum of the frequency multiplied by the midpoint, product of the frequency and the midpoint divided by the sample size. But then how do you get the midpoint? So to get the midpoint, you have to say the upper limit plus the lower limit divided by 2. So that is to say 15 plus 20 divided by 2. And that gives 17.5. So that is the midpoint for the first interval. So for the second one, the midpoint would be 20 plus 25 divided by 2, which is 22.5. It's 55 over 2, which is 22.5. And the third is 25 plus 30 divided by 2, which is 27.5. And then the third, you can see the pattern be 30 plus 35 divided by 2. 65 divided by 2 is 32.5. And then the next one, I'll just write the solutions. Please confirm for yourself. 37.5 and then 42.5. Now to get the mean, we have to find sum of fi xi, right? So we can do that easily by finding another column, by finding it on another column. So FI/XI for the first one would be 6 times 17.5, which is 105. Then for the second one, 4 times 22.5, which is 90. Third one, 3 times 27.5. Okay, let me put it here. It's 82.5. Then 8 times 32.5. Be 260. And then 9 times 37.5. That is 337.5. And then lastly, 5 times 42.5. That is 212.5. So on the equation, however, it wants the sum, so it means you have to add everything here, and that would give you the sum. So 105 plus 90 plus 82.5 plus 260 plus 337.5 plus 212.5, and that gives 1087.5. Means that is what you're going to substitute here for you to get the mean. Therefore, the mean would be given by 1087.5 divided by 35. By the way, 35 is the sum of all the frequencies. And that is 31.07. So that is our mean. It's given by 31.07. Alternatively, if you feel like you already master this, then you can also write it linearly like this. So this is the same thing. It said 6 times 17.5 plus 4 times 22.5 plus 3 times 27.5 plus 8 times 32.5 plus 9 times 37.5 plus 5 times 42.5 divided by 35. That gives you 31.07. And the interpretation is that on average, participants' age was 31.07. Okay, so that is the first one for calculating the mean. Now, the second question wants us to calculate the median. It says calculate the mean, the median, and the mode. So how do we calculate the median? In order for you to calculate the median, there are 3 steps. The first step is for you to find the median interval by using the cumulative frequency. And then the second step is for you to find the different components that you have to substitute into the equation. So let's first find the position of our median. So please make sure you copy this because I'm going to remove it. So in order for us to find the position of the median, it's given by n over 2, whereby n is the sample size. So the position is going to be 35 divided by 2. Which is 35 divided by 2 is 17.5. Right, so how do we find the interval if we know that the position is 17.5? We find that using the cumulative frequency. So the cumulative frequency, this is 6 here. For the first one, always take the frequency because what it means is that there are only 6 points, right? So it's 6. And then on the next one, there are 4 more, so it's 6 plus 4. It means now there's a total of 10 variables. So it's 10. Therefore, we know that the position 17.5 is not in any way on this interval because there are only 10 points. So 10 plus 3, that is 13. Again, we know for sure that the position is definitely not on this interval because there's only 13. Then 13 plus 8, and then that is 21. Then we know that is where the position is because 17 is between 13 and 21. And then we know it's definitely on 13 because there are only 13 points up to so far. So it's going to be between 30 to 35. And that is how we finally locate the interval of the median. After locating this interval, then you just have to substitute into the equation. So please note, we said 30 to 35 is the interval of the median. Now the median equation is given by the lower limit plus the class width sample size over 2 minus the cumulative frequency of the interval before divided by the frequency of that interval. So here, because it's between 30 to 35, the lower limit is 30, right? It's the number that is starting on that interval, plus C. C is 5, and how do you find C? It's going to be 35 minus 5. Okay, so let me just write for you. C is 35 minus 5. Minus 30, sorry, not 5. 35 minus 30, which is 5. And then N is 35 over 2. And then we said this is the cumulative frequency of the interval before. Right, so the cumulative frequency of the interval before, we saw that it's 13. So it's 13 divided by the frequency of that interval, which is 8. Right, so that would give us 30 plus 5 multiplied by 35 over 2 minus 13, okay, divided by 8, and that is 2.81, which would therefore be 32.81. Then it means that is our final answer, that is the median. And what is the interpretation? It means that 50% of the participants are less than 32.81 years old. Less than or equal to, and the other 50% is more than or equal to 32.81 of age. So that is how you calculate the median. First, you find the position, which is 17.5. Then after, you go to the cumulative frequency table, and then you find where does the 17.5 position lie, on which interval. After finding the interval, then you just have to substitute all those things here. Okay, and then the last one wants us to calculate the mode. So to calculate the mode, you have to find the interval with the highest frequency. So here we can see that 35 to less than 40 is the interval with the highest frequency. Therefore, is the modal interval. Then how do we put that in the equation? Then the equation of the mode is given by the lower limit of the modal interval plus the class width, the frequency of the modal interval, the frequency of the interval before, divided by 2 times the frequency of the modal interval minus frequency of the interval before minus the frequency of the interval after. So again, as we can see, this is going to be, we said this is our modal interval. So this would be our fm minus 1 because it's the interval before, right? Then it would be our fm, and then this would be our fm plus 1. Therefore, we substitute those into the equation. And then again, because this is the modal interval, this would be the lower limit of that interval. And then C again would be 40 minus 35, which is 5. Therefore, it would be 35 plus 5, 9 minus 8 divided by 2 times 9 minus 8 minus 5. So it will be 35 plus 5 multiplied by 9 minus 8 divided by 2 times 9 minus 8 minus 5. Then that is 1. So which is 36. And because the mode shows you the most occurring outcome, so it means most of the participants were 36 years. So we have calculated the first three, the mean, the median, and the mode. Let's go to the next question. So, question 2 says comment on the skewness. So the skewness would depend on the mean, the median, and the mode. This is usually a carry-on question. They ask you after you have calculated these three, so you would have to answer based on that. Then we said the mean is the mean, we found it to be 31.07, and then the median, we found it to be 32.81, and then the mode, we said is 36. So, as you can see, the mode is greater than the median, is greater than the mean. Right? 36 is greater than 32.81 is greater than 31. Therefore, it means it's negatively skewed. Remember, if the mean is less than the mean and the mean is less than the median and the mode, it's negatively skewed. But if the mean is greater than the median and the mode, then it's positively skewed. Okay, and then the third question, calculate the standard deviation. So in terms of the standard deviation, we know that it's given by, we just write here, that the standard deviation, when they ask you for it, you have to find the variance first. Then the variance is given by sum of fixi squared minus n mean squared divided by n minus 1. So in order for you to make this easy, to find the sum of the product of frequency and the midpoint squared, we have to use the table in order to avoid mistakes. From here we already have the value of f and x, so we can calculate fixi squared. And how do we do that? For the first one, frequency is 6, right? And then xi is 17.5. So you're going to say 6 times 17.5 squared. And then that gives 1837.5. Please note, the only thing you are squaring is 17.5, not the 6. Okay, and then the next one is going to be 4 times 22.5, which is squared. 4 times 22.5 that gives 2025. And then the next one is going to be 3 times 27.5 squared. 2268.75. 8 times 32.5 squared. 8,450. 9 times 37.5 squared. 12,656.25. Then lastly, 5 times 42.5 squared. It's gonna be 9,031.25. Now remember, the equation wants the sum, so we have to add everything here. And that gives 36,268.75. Okay, so since the equation wants the sum, then you have to take everything here. That is what's going to give you sum of fixi squared. So this value is going to be this value. Then let's substitute it. 36,268.75 minus n is 35, right? It's a sample size. And then the mean is 31.07, so 31.07 squared divided by 35 minus 1. Therefore, our variance I'll just say answer minus 35 times 31.07 squared divided by 35 minus 1. And that is 72.99. So our variance is 72.99. Therefore, it means the standard deviation would be the square root of 72.99. Which is 8.54. So that is our standard deviation. And we've answered number 2. Now the third question says determine the upper and the lower quartiles and interpret your answer. Again, for the upper and the lower quartile, the procedure is like the median. You first have to find the position of the quartile, then you locate the interval using the cumulative frequency, and then afterwards you substitute into the given equations. So the position of Q1, remember the lower quartile is the 25th percentile, right? So the position is going to be n over 4. Alternatively, you can write 0.25 times n. Okay, but let's just proceed with n over 4 is going to be 35 over 4. So 35 over 4 is 8.75. And just to confirm, see when you say 0.75 times 35 gives you, sorry, not 0.75, man, 0.25 times 35, it's 8.75, because it's the same thing. Anyway, it means that the position of the first quartile is 8. Now let's go locate that on the cumulative. So here we only have 6 points, so there is no way that the 8th position here. So now we have 10 points on the next one. So we know that it's definitely going to be on this interval, because we had moved from 6 points, and then it means here we had 0.7, 8, 9, 10. So the 8th position is somewhere on this interval from 20 to less than 25. So that means it's our Q1 interval. Then we can substitute to the Q1 equation, which is given by the lower, 0Q1 plus C, which is the plus width, and then it's n over 4, minus the cumulative frequency of the interval before, divided by the frequency on the Q1. So we said that the position is from 20 to less than 25. Then the lower limit is 20. Right, plus C, we know C is going to be 25 minus 20, which is 5. Right, it's the upper limit minus the lower limit. Then n over 4 is going to be that 35 over 4. If you want, you can substitute it as 8.75. You're going to get the same answer. Okay, minus the cumulative frequency of the interval before that one, which is 6. Right, divided by the frequency of that interval, which is 4. So it's going to be 20 plus 5 multiplied by 35 over 4 minus 6 divided by 4. It's 3.44. So it's going to be 24 or 23, 23.44. Then that is your Q1 value. And what does that mean? It means 25% of the respondents, participants, are less than or equal to 23.44 years old. And then it means the other 75%. 75% is more than or equal to 23.44. Because remember, the first quartile is the 25th percentile, meaning 25% of the data is less than or equal to that, and 75% is more than or equal to that value. Now let's move to the third quartile. So again, Q3, we find the position. Because Q3 is the 75th percentile, then we find it by saying 3n over 4. Or those who prefer the percentages, 0.75n. So it's going to be 3 times 35 over 4 is 26.25. Now we have to locate 26.25 on the cumulative frequency. Okay, so here we said it's only 6 points. It's definitely not here. It's 10, it's 13 points, definitely not here. It's 21. So 21 plus 9, okay, is 30. Therefore, since here it's from 21 on the upper class, on the class above, and here is 30. So we know that the position 26.25 is somewhere on this interval. Right, so it means that the Q3 interval is from 35 to less than 40. Now let's go with our Q3 equation. (3n/4) minus the cumulative. So we said that the interval is going to be from 35 to less than 40. So the lower limit is 35. Then C, we already know how to find it. It's 5, right? 3n/4 is 3 times 35/4. Alternatively, you can write the 26.25. The cumulative frequency of the interval before that one is that 21. Right, and then the frequency of that interval is 9. So that gives 35 plus, let's find out, 5 multiplied by 5. This is 2.91. Okay, so as you saw that for the first time I found 12 point something, so that is another sign that there's something that maybe the brackets that I put in the wrong place, at the wrong place, so it's gonna make your answer wrong, and I could see that it's gonna be 12, and it doesn't make sense because it's gonna fall outside of the interval. So now we have 37.91. So 37.91 is indeed between 35 and 40, which is the interval we're looking at, right? So this is another way to confirm. But everything is correct. What I did wrong was in terms of the calculator. Okay, so what it means is that 75% of the data of the participants are less than or equal to 37.91 years. Right, I will just write this shortly for space, and then it means the other 25 greater than equal to 37.91 years. So that is the calculation of Q1 and Q3. And then the last answer. The last question, says determine the 80th percentile value. So the 80th percentile value, the procedure to find it is almost similar to the quartiles and the median, just a small difference. So remember that the first quartile, like I said, is the 25th percentile. Hence we found it by saying n/4, the position by saying n/4, which is 0.25 times n, right, 25%. And the second quartile, i.e. the median, we found the position by saying n/2, which is 0.5 n, right? Then that's because it's gonna be 2/4 for half, and which would give you 1/2n, or n/2. And then for the third quartile is 3/4n, or 0.75n, or 3n/4, right? It's the same thing. That's because it's the 75th percentile. So now if you're looking for the 80th percentile, then the position would be given by 0.8 times n, or 80 over 100 times n. 80n, which would give you 80n over 100. So that is how you find the position of the 80th percentile. So it's gonna be 0.8 multiplied by 35. And that is the 28th position. Now we go to step 2, we go to the table, the cumulative frequency, and we locate the 28th position. So this is 21, then this is 30. We know that the 28th position is definitely on this interval, somewhere on that interval. Therefore, it means the 80th percentile is between 35 and 40. So, Pn equal to 0 Pn plus C P over 100 minus cumulative frequency before divided by frequency in there. So here the lower limit is going to be 35 because we said it's between 35 and 40. So it's 35 plus C is the same, it's 5. And then it's going to be 80 over 100 times 35. Or you can write 0.8 times 35, however you prefer it. Minus, and then the cumulative frequency of the interval before that one is 21. Divided by the frequency of that interval is 9. So it's going to be 35 plus is 3.89. So it's gonna be 38.89. As you can see, this is almost similar to the skewed ray. The only thing that differs here is on this one we used 3 over 4, and on this one we used 8 over 100, which is why the answers are different. And because this is the 80th percentile, of course it has to be higher than the 75th percentile. And then what is the interpretation? The interpretation is that 80% of the data of the respondents are less than equal to 38.89 years, and then the other 20% is greater or equal to that 38.89, and that is the interpretation. So just to recap, this is what they ask you on descriptive stats. So the other thing that I did not cover here that they could ask is the coefficient of variation, which will just substitute everything that you have. You will just substitute the mean and the standard deviation. And we did the skewness, the mean, median, the mode, the quartiles, and the percentile. Okay, thank you. In the next video, we'll just do the same measurements for ungrouped data.